The broom was out of reach, writes Gregory Maguire in his novel Wicked. The broom was out of reach, but it lunged a little bit towards her. It came across the floor at its own accord, and she saw it then. The broom was magic. She touched it almost fearfully, as if she guessed it had intentions, but it felt no different from an ordinary broom. It merely moved, and it was guided, as if guided by the hand of some invisible spirit. What tree have you been whittled from? What field have you been mown from? She asked it almost tenderly, but she expected no answer, and she got none. The broom quivered and elevated itself a little bit off the floor. And then the cape that she was wearing had a hood over it, and she drew it up over her face. And then she hiked up her summer skirt to her knees and threw one leg over the broom to ride it as a child would ride a hobby horse. And then the thing rose tentatively so she could keep her balance by trailing her toes off the floor, correcting. The center of gravity was high, the span was so narrow, the top of the handle tilted further up, and she slid down the shaft until she was caught by the brush at the top as if it were a saddle of sorts. She held on tightly. Her legs, especially in the upper thigh, felt as if they were swelling, the better to clench that handle between them. And then the large window at the end of the room hung open for air and light, and the broom moved a couple of feet across the floor until it had reached the sill, and then the broom rose a few more feet and carried her out the window. Her stomach pitched and her heels beat against the underside of the brush, and mercifully she emerged not in the castle courtyard where she would likely be seen, but on the other side where the land did not fall away quite so fast. The witch wailed softly in the strangeness and the ecstasy of the adventure. Oh, she cried, but whether to the broom or some guardian spirit she did not know. She shuddered with exposure and shock, and the broom rose higher and higher until it had come to be level with the uppermost window. And then she turned, and then she soared. So recently I learned what the word stan means. It's someone who is an outsized fan of a particular celebrity, book, movie, production. And I learned this just after I saw the movie Wicked, and I realized that, yep, that's me. I went to see the movie twice, and I've been playing the soundtrack on repeat. I really wanted to sing those lyrics that Lydia was reading for us. I happily consider myself a stan for Wicked. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, it's a retelling of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz from the perspective of the witch. And it hits all of my buttons. Strong female lead, musical, at times whimsical and poignant. And as much as I love the musical, I also love the book. In 1995, I was in my freshman year of high school, and I picked up Gregory Maguire's novel from the new release stand. And I have loved it ever since. And what's interesting to me is that the musical and the book have very different messages. I love them both, but they're very different messages. The musical is about this hero who triumphs against odds, and it has a happy ending. The book, on the other hand, is dark and sad and elliptical, and it shows the pain and the difficulty that come from trying to uphold your values in dark times. It shows that resisting power and evil often requires tremendous sacrifice without a clear knowledge that it's going to do any good. And it does all of this while pondering pretty deep philosophical questions about good and evil. So in other words, if you want to be inspired and uplifted, go watch the movie. If you want to be depressed and introspective, pick up the book. Now, in contrast with L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, The Wizard in Wicked is not so wonderful. He establishes a fascist regime stripping away the rights of the talking animals. At first, they cannot teach at schools and universities. They are forced to sit in the back of public transportation. Restaurants no longer serve them, and eventually they are put into camps and subjected to forced labor. Heavy themes, heavy themes. I heard somebody, I know somebody who went and took their child to the movie and were quite shocked that these were the themes of it. It really is an adult movie. Now, of course, Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, she believes that she's doing the right thing and that anyone with a conscience would join in the struggle against the wizard. Nonetheless, the wizard and the citizens of Oz condemn her as evil. And after she is nearly killed for joining a violent resistance against the wizard, she narrowly escapes to the West and embraces the labels that people put upon her. She says this, "People always did like to talk, didn't they? That's why I call myself a witch now, the Wicked Witch of the West, if you want the full glory of it. As long as people are going to try to call you a lunatic anyway, why not get the full benefit? It liberates you from convention." I think that sounds like a good philosophy. Now, Wicked explores how the policies of social exclusion take place and become normalized. And this is again where the book and the movie diverge. In the film, the wizard, played by Jeff Goldblum, turns animals into second-class citizens so that he can have a convenient enemy. He decides that it is the easiest way to unify Oz. It's a very intentional strategy that comes from one person. But the book is far more subtle. There's an episode in the book that gets at this, I think. One of the wizard's henchmen, Madame Morrible, recites a poem in front of a class of students. And its final line is, "Animals should be seen and not heard." Following the recital, the students debate that last line and what its possible implications are. Was she arguing that animals did not deserve a place in public life? Was she arguing that they should be cast out of the university in which they are students? And what they notice is that this kind of bigotry is quietly seeping into everyday speech, and people are becoming emboldened to state their prejudices out in the open. It's slowly spilling over into actions and to policies. Maguire focuses on this one instance, the reading of the poem, because it is through small moments like that that hatred and dehumanization crystallize. There is not a grand, dramatic attempt to turn against the animals. Instead, many tiny moments that where people go along without thinking, without challenging, those are the things that cause this hatred to bloom. And so, sorry about that. No, that's not right. My pages got all mixed up. And now back to our regular scheduled programming. It's through these many small moments that violence and dehumanization flourish. And I think that this gets very close to Hannah Arendt's views. She was a Jewish philosopher who survived the Nazis and escaped to the United States. In her book, The Origins of Totalitarianism, she talks about the many quiet, subterranean factors that paved the way for the anti-Semitism of the Nazis. And these included long-standing religious prejudices and fears that slowly started to slip out into the open and become normalized. And rather than challenge them, most people accepted them without thinking. As Arendt put it, the sad truth, and this is the quote that Gail read a little bit earlier, the sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil. Evil thrives when people are apathetic, when they go along without thinking, and it cannot survive without those behaviors. Arendt coined the term the banality of evil. And this is what she's talking about. Evil is allowed to flourish because people go along without thinking, without challenging. They simply follow orders and accept the status quo. For her, evil usually does not have depth. It does not have sadistic or horrific motives. Instead, evil spreads and flourishes because no one bothers to confront it. In contrast to this, Arendt thought that good, that true good, has profound depth. She says that good can be radical while evil cannot. And the radicalism of the good is measured in the heroic acts that challenge the status quo, that stand up to those quiet acts of prejudice that spread throughout the body politic. And there is something breathtaking about good to Arendt, something inspiring when we witness it. This is how Arendt puts it. Men have been found to resist the most powerful monarchs and to refuse to bow before them. But few indeed have been found to resist the crowd, to stand up before the misguided masses, to face their implacable frenzy without weapons and with folded arms, to dare a no when a yes is demanded. There was an act of heroic goodness that I witnessed this week. It was in the remarks of the Reverend Marianne Bood. From her post as Bishop of the National Cathedral in Washington, she pled with our president to have mercy on the millions of immigrants. She pled with our president to have mercy on LGBTQ families. She pled with the president to have mercy on refugees of different faiths. And she could have stood there. We can imagine it. It would be so easy for her to stand there and give some vague statements about love and justice. She could have given platitudes about national unity and how we all need to come together right now. Instead, she exercised a quiet, gentle, determined heroism, and I found it deeply inspiring. Now, I mentioned that Wicked, the book, is dark and forlorn, while Wicked, the movie, is optimistic. Here's where I want to side with the movie against the book. Because here is something that is shimmering, beautiful, and powerful, and it is in the actions that confront evil and challenge it. There is something in it that defies the gravity of the status quo, and it's readily available to all of us. It doesn't require extraordinary power or resources. It simply requires us to think and to act from our values and to say no when the crowds demand a yes. And that can be hard, but it's also possible. It is imminently possible and available to all of us each and every day. We can choose the good against prejudice that spreads quietly and implacably from neighbor to neighbor. Today we are kicking off our pledge drive, and I just want to give a plug for that, because our congregation has organized teams to fight for immigrant justice, to fight for LGBTQ rights, to fight for environmental action. We are finding a way to say no to the policies that would exclude people and that would degrade the environment. We are finding ways to say no while others say yes. And those actions that we are taking as a community, they are only possible from the support of members that care about these issues. And so today I invite you to give generously and help NSUC shine brighter and defy gravity. So you have your pledge card now, and we're going to hear this next wonderful tune from the musical and movie Wicked. And as that is happening, I invite you to fill out your pledge card. Consider giving 3% of your AGI to the cause. Consider becoming a cornerstone member of NSUC and help us continue to support these actions in this community that cares about justice and love in the world. And you know what, my spiritual companions? If you end up getting labeled wicked because of it, I'm going to be there, right there with you. I love you. Amen and amen.